Hey guys, tonight we slip back into a world so cold that your eyelashes would frost over before you could even blink. You're standing at the mouth of a cave somewhere in Ice Age Europe, maybe 20,000 years ago. The wind outside drags ghost-like across frozen grasslands, and the moon hangs pale and sharp as a knife. If you step out there in your pajamas, you probably won't survive this. Sorry, but it's true. Temperatures drop lower than a modern freezer, and the air itself feels like it's trying to steal your breath. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, tell me in the comments where you're listening from and what time it is right now. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You shuffle deeper into the cave, breath fogging the air like thin smoke. Behind you, the world of mammoths and saber-toothed cats goes quiet. There's a faint crackle of fire ahead. Someone else got here before you. A few humans huddle close, their faces flickering amber and gold. They look tired, maybe hungry, but also calm. This is their bedtime, the Ice Age way. The trick, you realize, is not to fight the cold, but to make a pact with it. These people learned the slow art of survival, and every night was a negotiation between life and frostbite. The cave itself helps. Rock holds onto heat better than open air. It's not cozy, exactly, but the thick stone walls block the wind and bounce back warmth from the fire. Even a few degrees warmer can mean the difference between waking up or not waking up at all. The group arranges themselves with practiced precision. Fire in the center, sleepers around it in a loose circle, feet toward the flames, heads tucked near furs or moss bundles. The smoke curls upward, painting black streaks on the cave ceiling. It's not just warmth, it's safety. Predators hate smoke, and the glowing embers mean watchful humans are near. You notice one woman feeding twigs into the fire with careful rhythm, never letting it die too low. Her eyes flick open every few minutes. Historians still argue whether Ice Age people actually took turns keeping watch, or if everyone drifted in and out of shallow sleep together. But either way, someone was always half awake. The Ice Age night was too dangerous for full trust in dreams. The air smells of wood resin and animal fat, a mix of comfort and survival. Every object in the cave serves a purpose. Bundles of dry grass for bedding, rocks arranged like crude reflectors around the hearth, bits of charred bone that might have been used as lamps. Archaeologists have found evidence of such arrangements in sites like Dolní Věstonice in the Czech Republic, layered hearths that show generations of human sleep habits built up in soot and ash. You crawl closer to the warmth. The animal hides under you are rough but thick, maybe reindeer or bison. Beneath them is a mat of dried moss that holds air pockets, trapping heat from your body. Your fingers tingle, first with cold, then slowly with warmth. You start to feel that heavy pull in your eyelids. It's amazing how quickly exhaustion wins against fear. Someone nearby hums, just a low note that vibrates in the chest. Maybe it's a lullaby, maybe just a sound to reassure the group that everyone's still breathing. You think about how the human voice itself might have been a survival tool. The rhythm of breathing, whispering, or even snoring can signal safety. A quiet camp, after all, can sound like a dead one to a lurking predator. You imagine the Ice Age sky outside, countless stars, a sky unpolluted by anything human-made. Aurora lights flicker like liquid curtains far to the north. The cold is so pure it almost hums. And here you are, small and alive, tucked against others whose heartbeat you can feel through layered furs. A mainstream historical fact. By this era, roughly 20,000 BCE, humans had already mastered fire use for thousands of years. Controlled fire wasn't new, but sleeping next to it safely was an art form. They'd learned that surrounding embers with stones helped radiate heat evenly and reduced sparks that could ignite bedding. It's one of those subtle bits of engineering that turned barely surviving into making it through the night. A quirky tidbit: some archaeological sites show deliberate placement of animal skulls near sleeping areas, not for ritual necessarily, but perhaps for insulation or even companionship. Think of it as the world's earliest stuffed animal, though admittedly with more teeth. As you nestle into your imagined spot in that ancient cave, your modern instincts kick in. What about carbon monoxide, you think? But Ice Age caves weren't sealed bunkers. Airflow came from cracks and tunnels, enough to vent smoke, but not enough to drain heat completely. The balance was delicate, just like the rest of their existence. Outside, a wind gust whistles through the entrance, and the fire flares briefly. Shadows dance across the stone walls, making it look like animals move just beyond sight. You realize that every night like this taught early humans something vital: the rhythm of breath, the limits of endurance, and how community itself was a kind of insulation. You wonder what dreams they had. Did they dream of summer rivers and berries, or of mammoths lumbering across the tundra? Maybe their dreams were practical, rehearsing the next hunt, remembering where to find warmth. Sleep, in a world like this, wasn't escape. It was repair. Someone shifts nearby, pulling a fur tighter. The group murmurs softly, a chorus of breath and heartbeat. You can feel the fire's pulse matching your own. You start to drift, imagining that long ago, these same sounds, crackling wood, the slow sighs of sleep, were the music that held the species together. And just before your thoughts melt into drowsiness, another idea flickers. This night, this shared warmth, is where humanity learned what it meant to trust one another. In the Ice Age, sleep wasn't solitude. It was a pact, a circle of bodies and flame against the endless cold. You wake, or half-wake, to the soft hiss of embers and the low creak of settling stone. The air has that thin chill again, the one that pricks your nose but doesn't quite bite. Your skin remembers the cold, but your body knows what to do with it. That's the magic of being human in the Ice Age. You're built for this, even if it doesn't feel like it. You stretch under furs that smell faintly of smoke and fat, and you feel your muscles tighten and relax again. Your body shivers almost on cue, a reflexive spark to warm your core. It's not pleasant, but it's efficient. Every little tremor burns calories. And in this world, that's the price of warmth. Scientists call this thermogenesis. You just call it why my teeth are rattling like tiny maracas. Humans are warm-blooded mammals. Endothermic, if you want to sound fancy about it. That means your body keeps a steady internal temperature, even when the world outside tries to turn you into an ice sculpture. But compared to, say, a woolly rhino, you're not exactly thickly insulated. So, the real question is, how did you, with your soft skin and patchy body hair, manage to sleep through sub-zero nights without turning into a human popsicle? Part of the answer is in that delicate balance your body maintains between heat production and heat loss. You generate heat constantly through metabolism, burning fat and carbohydrates like a tiny, self-contained furnace. During sleep, your body cools slightly, but it doesn't shut off the system. In fact, Ice Age humans may have evolved subtle tweaks to that rhythm. Some anthropologists think our ancestors could maintain a slightly higher baseline temperature during winter months, a biological adjustment that echoed through generations. Historians still argue whether that was evolutionary adaptation or just clever behavior passed along through survival instincts. You shift your position, curling into a tight ball, instinctively protecting your chest and abdomen. That posture, knees to chest, arms tucked in, isn't just cozy, it minimizes surface area and traps body heat close to your vital organs. Even modern Arctic peoples, like the Inuit, use similar positions during sleep or rest outdoors. There's something ancient in the way your body knows how to protect itself. Shivering might sound like the body's panic button, but it's actually strategy. Each muscle contraction releases a tiny burst of heat, turning movement into warmth. But you can't do it all night. It burns through energy fast. That's why those high-fat diets mattered so much. Without stored fat, shivering would only buy you a few desperate hours. More on that later. Your metabolism deserves its own spotlight. Then there's skin. You run your hand over your forearm. Imagine it thicker, darker, adapted to wind and frost. Early humans living in Ice Age Eurasia likely had varied skin tones and hair densities, depending on ancestry and latitude. There's even a quirky tidbit. Some studies suggest that thicker body hair around key spots, like the chest or limbs, might have offered marginal warmth, retention, not enough to skip the furs. But every strand counted when temperatures plummeted. The real miracle, though, is your circulatory system. Your blood vessels perform a quiet dance all night, narrowing vasoconstriction to keep heat near your core, then widening vasodilation to prevent frostbite in fingers and toes. It's a biological seesaw, one that keeps you alive while you dream. The fire flickers again, and a spark snaps, waking someone beside you. They roll over and exhale a misty breath. You watch how they instinctively burrow deeper into the hides, using shared body heat like currency. It's not romantic, it's survival economics. Humans learned early that warmth works best when it's multiplied. Outside the cave, a cold dawn tries to seep in, pale light creeping across the snow. You picture a small group stirring, rubbing hands together, and shaking the frost off hair and eyebrows. Sleeping through that kind of cold demanded precision, not luck. The human body didn't just endure it, it adapted around it, minute by minute, heartbeat by heartbeat. There's a little-known theory, half biology, half folklore, that Ice Age humans developed a special tolerance for nightly temperature dips, almost like a mild form of controlled hypothermia. The idea is controversial, but the logic is fascinating. If your body could safely let its core temperature drop a few degrees without triggering shock, you'd conserve energy while still staying alive. Historians still argue whether this was true adaptation or modern projection, but it paints a compelling picture. Imagine sleeping so deeply your body cools like embers, only to reignite itself with the dawn. And speaking of embers, fire didn't just warm your surroundings, it influenced your internal clock. The orange glow and steady crackle signaled safety, allowing your body to relax and lower its stress hormones. Modern studies show how firelight can regulate melatonin levels. So yes, those ancient campfires might have been the world's first sleep lamps. No batteries required. You pull your fur closer, thinking about how strange it is that the same mechanisms still hum inside you today. You may have heating, blankets, and the blessed invention of central air, but your body hasn't forgotten the ancient code. Conserve heat, trust the group, and don't move too far from the fire. Even now, on cold nights, you probably curl up like those Ice Age dreamers did. Maybe your room's not a cave, but the instinct is the same. You wrap your arms around yourself, you nestle under blankets, and your breath makes tiny clouds in the dark. For a moment, you relinked to a lineage of sleepers stretching back tens of thousands of years, each one relying on the same heartbeat rhythm, the same warmth in the blood. You can almost hear the echo of it, the slow, synchronized breathing of a clan asleep together, human warmth pulsing through the night. And maybe, if you listen closely, your body remembers that it once knew how to outsmart the ice itself. You step outside the cave just before dusk, the air still thin and sharp as glass. The sun sinks low over a world made of silver and shadow, glaciers crouching on the horizon, valleys dusted with snow that crunches underfoot like powdered bone. You draw your fur cloak tighter and scan the landscape. If you're going to sleep again tonight, without freezing, you need more than fire and courage. You need the perfect spot. The Ice Age wasn't all endless white deserts. There were microclimates, tiny pockets of mercy scattered across the cold world. You learn to hunt them the same way your ancestors did, not for food, but for warmth. The south-facing slope, the one that catches sun most of the day, that's where you'll rest. A rock overhang that blocks the northern wind. Better yet, the difference between a deadly frost and a livable night might only be a few degrees. But when you're wrapped in hide instead of Gore-Tex, those degrees matter more than you can imagine. You test the ground with your boot. Beneath the surface, snow lies soil that's not entirely frozen. Good sign. It means trapped geothermal warmth. Maybe even a natural vent nearby. Some Ice Age people knew the secret of hot springs, those steaming veins of earth that refused to yield to the cold. Archaeologists have found evidence of prehistoric settlements clustered near such springs in what is now Japan and Central Europe. Imagine that. A natural hot tub under the aurora, minus the margarita. As you walk, you notice how sound travels differently here. The cold flattens everything. Each breath echoes. You can hear the faint crackle of distant frost, the low grumble of shifting ice. You look for trees. Not many, but a stand of hardy pine bends southward, suggesting prevailing winds. That's your cue. You follow the trees until you find a rocky alcove, half-sheltered, kissed by sunlight, even as the temperature drops. You squat, run your fingers across the stones. One side feels warmer. The rock face has been absorbing heat all afternoon, storing it like a primitive radiator. Early humans figured this out long before thermodynamics had a name. They didn't just stumble into caves. They read the land like a manual. Mainstream historical fact, evidence from sites such as Lazaret Cave in France and Border Cave in South Africa shows deliberate choice of sleeping spots aligned with wind protection and natural heat sources. These weren't random camps. They were microclimate masterpieces. A quirky tidbit: some groups may have used snow itself as insulation, digging shallow pits and layering them with branches and furs. Snow, despite its icy reputation, traps air and blocks wind. Think of it as nature's weighted blanket, just one you'd need a chisel to fluff. You picture it: a group of humans carving a shallow bowl into the snow, lining it with pine boughs, then crawling in together under reindeer hides. From the outside, they look like a drift of snow. From the inside, it's surprisingly still. The temperature difference might only be 10 degrees, but it's the line between life and loss. Historians still argue whether Ice Age people intentionally engineered such snow shelters, or just happened to benefit from natural formations. Either way, you can feel the intelligence in their choices. Every gust, every slope, every rock was part of a quiet calculation. The wind picks up, brushing icy fingers through your hair. You crouch lower and press your palm against the ground again. It's firm, but not frozen. Perfect. You start to imagine what it must have been like to recognize warmth by instinct alone, to sniff it out like an animal, because in the Ice Age, you were an animal, one trying to outwit others with fur and fangs. You gather some dry grass, tuck it under the chosen ledge, and start a fire. The smoke rises in slow ribbons, curling toward the open sky. You can tell you've chosen well. The smoke doesn't blow back in your face. The slope deflects the wind, just enough to keep the air breathable. You grin. It is the same smug satisfaction someone gets today when they find the warmest spot on the couch. As the flames take hold, you settle against the rock, feeling the day's stored heat seep into your back. The contrast between warm stone and cold air feels almost luxurious. You glance upward, a few stars blink awake. Somewhere far off, a mammoth trumpets, low and mournful. You wonder how many nights your ancestors spent perfecting this art of microclimate hunting, learning the whisper language of geography. A modern aside slips in. You think about how humans today still chase microclimates. We build houses facing the sun, design cities to capture breezes, and fight over seats near heaters in winter cafes. The instinct never left us. It just put on a sweater and moved indoors. You rest your head on your arm, letting the firelight dance across your eyelids. The air smells faintly of resin and charred pine. You can almost hear ancient footsteps, generations finding the same kind of warmth in different corners of the frozen world. It's strange to think that the Ice Age wasn't uniformly deadly. It was mosaic, patchwork, some areas brutal, others gentler. The ones who found those gentle pockets lived to tell the story, to have children, to pass on the skill. Survival wasn't just luck, it was real estate. Location, location, location. Even in 20,000 BCE, you shift closer to the fire and run your hand along the rock wall, feeling its grain, its quiet pulse. Every inch tells you something: where the heat lingers, where the frost creeps, where the night creatures might nest. You realize that finding a sleeping place back then wasn't passive. It was an act of reading the earth, a nightly conversation between human and planet. Outside, the wind starts to soften. Snow drifts fall in thick, slow flakes, muffling the world into silence. The rock radiates gentle warmth through your back. Your eyelids droop, but your mind still traces invisible maps. Ridges, valleys, hidden hollows. In a few hours, when the fire burns low, you'll be grateful for every degree you captured, The Ice Age night closes around you, not as an enemy this time, but as a vast, cold roommate who's decided to tolerate your existence for now. You sigh, letting your body sink into the Earth's borrowed warmth. Somewhere in that twilight space between wake and sleep, you understand what your ancestors knew by instinct. The world might be cold, but it's full of small kindnesses if you learn how to find them. The next night comes with that quiet, silver tension, the kind that hangs between your heartbeat and the frost. You crouch again in the half-dark, coaxing life into a pile of tinder. The first spark leaps, hesitates, then bites into the dry grass with a sigh. Fire. You stare into it like you always do, as if it's the only living thing that doesn't want something from you. In the Ice Age, fire wasn't luxury. It was negotiation. Every evening, you had to bargain with it, feed it, shield it, respect it. Too much air, and it devoured your fuel too quickly. Too little, and it choked. You sit there, carefully feeding it twigs, feeling the small rush of power that comes from holding one of nature's fiercest forces in your own hands. The flames crackle, gold and orange, against the blue-black dark. They make the walls dance and paint everyone's faces with the illusion of warmth. You watch your breath mingle with smoke. That mixture, the rhythm of exhalation and ember, is the soundtrack of survival. It's funny, isn't it? In a world where ice could crush mountains, humans survived because they mastered something that fits inside your cupped hands. Fire was your overnight security blanket, and your Netflix rolled into one. It kept predators cautious and gave you something mesmerizing to stare at when the dark stretched on too long. Scientists say the color spectrum of firelight actually triggers calm in the human brain. That's probably why you could watch it for hours and feel your pulse slow. A mainstream historical fact, evidence from sites like Qasem Cave in Israel, shows humans maintained central hearths over tens of thousands of years, rebuilding fires in the same spots again and again. That consistency means something. They weren't just burning for cooking, but for living. You lean closer. The heat feels like it's sinking into your bones. Smoke curls around your head, leaving your hair smelling like wood and ash. It isn't pleasant by modern standards, but it's comfort in this era. The fire does its quiet work, moderating the night, softening the edges of death that press in from outside. A quirky tidbit floats through your mind. Some Ice Age groups may have used green wood or damp moss to create thicker smoke deliberately, not just for insect control, but to block the view from predators or rival humans. A smoky camp might have been a strategic fog machine, ancient camouflage against the moonlit tundra. Imagine that. The first stealth technology was just someone tossing wet moss into the fire. You recline back on your elbows, eyes half-lidded. Around you, the group settles in. One man pokes at the fire, absent-mindedly, with a stick. A child giggles when sparks shoot upward like tiny stars. Someone grumbles about smoke in their face. Even here, tens of thousands of years ago, humanity finds a way to complain about seating arrangements. The fire's rhythm becomes hypnotic, and your thoughts drift. Historians still argue whether early humans deliberately designed multi-hearth camps to create microclimates inside shelters, zones of warmth where people could sleep while food smoked or tools dried. Archaeological evidence hints at that sophistication, burned patches in geometric patterns, as though fire wasn't just a circle, but a carefully mapped layout. Fire as architecture. You feel the temperature gradient even now, the air near the floor colder, the heat climbing upward. You imagine someone a little smarter than average realizing that lying lower, near the embers, kept you warmer than sitting upright. The original sleep low, stay warm policy, millennia before anyone coined the phrase. The fire crackles, sending faint warmth across your skin. You think about how fire changed sleep itself. Before it, humans likely huddled together, sleeping lightly, waking at every sound. But with fire's glow, the night stretched longer, safer. The flickering light acted like a slow heartbeat in the dark, each flame a reassurance that danger was being held at bay. Still, there were trade-offs. You can almost smell the carbon and soot collecting on cave walls, staining them dark. You know the smoke clung to lungs too. Some skeletons from the period show signs of chronic respiratory irritation. Our ancestors paid for their warmth with every breath. But if the choice is smoke or freezing, you already know what you'd pick. You watch someone across the fire yawn, their face haloed by sparks. Sleep creeps up on the group, gradually, not all at once. 2 people stay awake, always 2. One tending the fire, one listening. You think about how that pattern echoes into the future. Night watchmen, sentries, parents, half awake, beside a baby monitor. The habit of partial vigilance was born right here, in the light of flickering flames. You shift position, feeling the warmth lick against your cheek. The air hums softly, the sound of wood giving itself away molecule by molecule. It's intimate, almost tender, the way the fire feeds you warmth even as it dies. A memory stirs, of modern camping trips, of staring into a bonfire with friends, feeling that same trance-like comfort. It's the same ancient chemical in your blood reacting to light and shadow. You can almost hear your Ice Age self whisper, "See, we taught you this." There's something almost spiritual in how you share space with fire. In the Ice Age, people likely saw it as alive, a creature to be tamed, fed, adored, and in a way, they were right. The fire eats, breathes, dances, and sometimes misbehaves. You remember the char marks you saw near a cave entrance earlier, evidence of fires, too big, too hungry. The lesson must have been learned fast. Build small, control it, don't let it rule you. You toss another stick onto the flames and feel a tiny gust of heat. The stick blackens, then glows red at the edges before collapsing into ember. You realize you've been staring too long. Your eyes water, but you can't look away. The hypnotic pull feels older than language. Somewhere deep inside, your brain releases that subtle wave of calm, your body's way of saying, "We're safe for now." The same instinct that let early humans finally relax enough to fall into deep sleep. Fire didn't just warm the body, it warmed the mind, quieted the animal panic that once ruled every dark hour. You lie down, letting the fire's warmth trace patterns across your face. Outside, the wind claws at the world. But here, inside this fragile circle of light, you might as well be inside a heartbeat. The cave breathes with you, and you feel that strange human luxury. Peace earned through cleverness. Tomorrow, the fire will be cold ash again, and you'll have to coax new life from stone and spark. But tonight, it's your silent guardian. You watch it dim to embers, glowing red, like tiny eyes watching back, and before you finally drift, you think one last sleepy thought. Without this flicker, humanity might never have learned to dream. Morning finds you in a cocoon of ash-scented warmth. The fire is down to a quiet bed of gray dust, still pulsing faintly with red beneath the surface. You stretch, blinking into the dim glow that filters from the cave mouth, and realize that, once again, you've survived another night. But you can't help wondering, what if there hadn't been a cave? What if the wind had been stronger, the snow thicker, or the firewood too wet to light? That's when your mind drifts to one of humanity's most underrated inventions, the shelter. Not just a roof over your head, but a personal climate machine, custom built for staying alive while the world outside froze solid. You picture yourself stepping out of your cave and into the flat, frozen plains of what's now Ukraine or Siberia, tens of thousands of years ago. The wind tears sideways, dragging glittering snow like sand. Ahead of you stands a cluster of shapes rising from the tundra. Round, low huts, their entrances facing away from the prevailing gusts. The walls are pale, ribbed, curved like the skeletons of enormous creatures, which in fact they are. You approach one and realize it's built entirely from mammoth bones, massive tusks arched into frames, ribs woven together like wicker, skulls stacked as insulation. The gaps are stuffed with moss, clay, and snow. You duck inside, and the difference hits you instantly. Quiet, almost warm, like stepping into a whisper. Archaeologists have uncovered exactly these structures, most famously at Mezhyrik in Ukraine, entire villages built from the remains of Ice Age giants. It is one of those facts that is so strange, it feels mythical. Humans literally slept inside the bones of the beasts they hunted. Inside, the walls are surprisingly thick. The bones don't just hold shape, they trap air. Someone clever figured out that the skull's hollow sinuses make excellent insulation when packed with snow. You crouch near the center, where a fire pit leaves a circle of blackened stone. The air smells faintly of char and animal hide, a prehistoric version of new home scent. You run your fingers over the interior surface, smooth in places from countless hands, ridged in others where sinew tees still hold. The floor is lined with hides layered over dried grass, each mat flattened by generations of sleepers. It's not luxury, but it's genius. Grass traps air, hides repel moisture, and the layers together form something like ancient memory foam. If memory foam squeaked when you rolled over. Historians still argue whether these bone huts were permanent homes or seasonal bases for nomadic groups following herds. The debate isn't just about architecture, it's about identity. Did Ice Age people think of these places as home, or just as warm stations on the long road of survival? A quirky tidbit slips in. Some of these bone huts were decorated, bits of ochre staining the interior, small carvings etched into the tusks, even necklaces hung like primitive wind chimes. Imagine that, still finding time to decorate your snowbound skull mansion, proof that even at the edge of extinction, humans couldn't resist a little interior design. You lie down in the center of this imagined hut, eyes tracing the patterns where tusks meet sky. The fire crackles softly beside you, the smoke escaping through a hole cut in the roof. A tiny draft snakes through the entrance, but you're wrapped tight in reindeer hide, your own microclimate within a larger one. It occurs to you that sleep For these people, it wasn't a passive act, it was engineering. They built warmth, layered it, managed it. Each night was a controlled experiment in thermodynamics, done without notebooks, thermometers, or equations. The equation was simple: structure plus fire plus fur plus proximity, life. You hear faint sounds outside, maybe the snort of a reindeer herd, or the crunch of a snow beneath soft boots. The hut creaks in the wind, bones flexing but holding firm. You imagine entire families curled around the same fire, the soft murmur of whispers before dreams take over. The air hums with shared breath, and the gentle sigh of smoke, a mainstream historical fact. Layered sleeping surfaces like this, found in places such as Border Cave, South Africa, date back nearly 200,000 years. People use grasses with insect-repelling properties, possibly the earliest known use of plants as bedding technology. So when you complain about thread count, remember, you had ancestors who literally invented pest-resistant sleep. The more you look around this bone and hide world, the more it feels strangely cozy. The dim light bouncing off ivory walls gives everything a soft glow. Even the air feels thicker, calmer, as if the space itself is exhaling warmth back into you. You start to understand how, in a place where night lasted 16 hours, this might have been the safest feeling anyone could hope for. You shift position, and a puff of ash drifts up from the hearth. You imagine the smell clinging to every fiber of your clothes, to your hair. In the Ice Age, people didn't just smell like smoke. They were smoke, in a sense, carrying traces of their fires wherever they went. Some scholars propose that humans learned to design shelter by imitating animal burrows, observing fox dens or bear caves, and recreating those natural pockets of warmth. Others think it was pure invention, born from trial and desperation. You prefer to think it was both, a collaboration between human curiosity and nature's cheat sheet. Outside, the wind groans again, rattling the tusks. You glance toward the entrance and notice how low it is. You'd have to crawl to get out, but that's the point. Smaller openings mean less heat loss. The air trapped inside warms quickly from body heat and fire alike. It's physics, disguised as humility. You curl back down, pulling your hide tighter. The mammoth bone ribs above you creak once more, almost like the world itself sighing. You think about how these shelters weren't just protection, they were stories, monuments to both ingenuity and audacity. To build your bed from the bones of a creature that could crush you was the ultimate act of human defiance. You close your eyes, listening to the wind's whistle turn into a lullaby. The warmth pools around you, heavier than fur, quieter than thought. You smile, half asleep, and think that maybe, just maybe, the Ice Age wasn't all cruelty. It had its moments of grace, bone, fire, hide, and hope, stitched together in a little dome of survival. The smell of tanned hide never really leaves you. It clings to your skin, your hair, your breath. It's the scent of safety, the smell of staying alive. Tonight, you sit beside the hearth again, holding a needle made from bone, its tip polished to a wicked sharpness. In your lap lies a strip of softened caribou hide, slick with animal grease. Your fingers are cracked from cold and work, but they move with purpose. You're sewing your armor against the night. Clothing was the human superpower of the Ice Age. Not claws, not fangs, thread. Without it, you'd be nothing but clever meat. You push the needle through, tug the sinew tight, and feel that small, satisfying resistance that means the stitch will hold. The thread is made from reindeer gut, tough, elastic, slightly translucent in the firelight. Each loop binds more than fabric. It binds you to survival. The hides themselves are marvels. Each one tells a story of the animal it came from, where it roamed, how it fell, how its warmth was borrowed by another species entirely. You run your hand across a sleeve in progress. It's thicker near the shoulder, thinner near the wrist. The design isn't random. You need flexibility to move, but insulation where the wind cuts hardest. It's bespoke tailoring, Ice Age style. A mainstream historical fact. The oldest known sewing needles, found in Siberia's Denisova cave, date back around 40,000 years. They're so finely made, they could still be used today. Whoever crafted them wasn't guessing. They were engineers of skin and thread. You picture yourself layering garments, an inner wrap of softer fur, perhaps from hare or fox, then a heavier outer layer of bison or mammoth calf hide. The seams overlap, directing water and wind downward instead of inward. You pull the hood up. The fur lining brushes your cheek. Suddenly, the howling wind outside sounds far away. Historians still argue whether true tailored clothing, garments shaped to the human body rather than draped, originated with Homo sapiens or Neanderthals. There's evidence both wore hides, but the presence of sewing tools leans toward modern humans as the inventors of fit. You grin a little at that. Tailored fashion as an evolutionary advantage. Take that fast fashion, a quirky tidbit. Some Ice Age folks apparently waterproofed their garments using mixtures of marrow grease, fish oil, or even powdered charcoal rubbed into the seams. You imagine rubbing a handful of black mush into your new coat, muttering, "It's not a stain, it's performance fabric." You glance around the firelight, where others work alongside you. One person is scraping a hide with a flint blade, removing the last of the connective tissue until the leather shines faintly. Another kneels by a frame of drying skins, stretching them so they won't stiffen. The rhythmic rasp of scraping becomes a kind of music, ancient and domestic. It's the sound of civilization before anyone thought to name it. You slip your hands into the half-finished garment, flexing your fingers inside. The warmth is immediate, startling. You realize how transformative this must have felt the first time someone figured it out, that you could carry warmth with you, not just sit beside it. Clothing turned humans from local creatures into global wanderers. There's a moment, though, when you think of the animals that made it possible. Every hide in this cave once walked the earth. Every stitch is borrowed life. You remember the faint scent of fat melting on the fire, the thin hiss it makes when it drips onto hot stone. The Ice Age was a time of gratitude as much as hunger. You didn't waste what you took. Someone beside you jokes softly, something about how the wind will have to knock twice to get in tonight. You laugh, the sound echoing off the rock. Even now, you find room for humor. Humans have always known how to laugh at the cold. It's part of the insulation. You try on the full ensemble. Layers rustle as you move. The hide pants cinch at the waist with a braided sinew belt. Your boots are lined with grass and fur, stuffed just tight enough to trap air, but loose enough to let you walk. You stamp your feet. They feel almost springy. A little damp, sure, but warm. You step toward the cave entrance and feel the wind strike your face, sharp, like a knife drawn quick. But your body doesn't flinch. The cold stays outside your skin now. The hides flex and whisper with each movement. breathing like another creature wrapped around you. In the flicker of moonlight, you notice the fur glows faintly, every strand tipped with frost. It's beautiful in its own raw way. You realize the Ice Age wardrobe wasn't just functional, it was unintentionally stunning. Imagine a band of travelers moving through snow, their coats a mosaic of white, tan, and gray, living art against a dead world. You settle near the fire again, peeling off the outer layer so it can dry. The air in the cave carries the musk of smoke, sweat, and tanned hide, a combination that somehow feels like home. You think of the modern humans now, fussing with thermostats and complaining about drafts. They'd never last a night out here, but you smile softly, knowing they're still your kin. Every blanket, every parka, every cozy sweater is an echo of this same ingenuity. A debate hums quietly in the background, two elders arguing in low voices. You catch a few words, something about whether the caribou hides should be sewn fur in or fur out for sleeping mats. It's oddly comforting to know that humans have always argued about the best way to stay comfortable. Tradition, it seems, includes a healthy dose of stubbornness. You turn your coat inside out to test both theories and find that fur in, it's warmer but sweatier. Fur out, it breathes better but feels colder. You settle for a compromise, muttering to yourself that comfort is an illusion anyway. Fire pops, a spark jumping like a star between logs. You lean back, exhausted but satisfied. Every stitch you made today, every scrap of hide transformed, is another promise that you'll see morning. You let that thought sink into you like heat. You close your eyes, the smell of fur thick around you, and drift toward sleep. Your body is cocooned in layers of memory, animal warmth, human effort, firelight. For a few moments, you forget that the world outside is frozen. You're wrapped not just in hide, but in the oldest invention of all, hope made tangible, one stitch at a time. You wake to the sound of breathing, soft, rhythmic, layered. It takes you a moment to realize it isn't just yours. All around you, the others are stirring, stretching under hides, sighing into the chill morning air. The cave hums with quiet life, the collective rustle of a dozen people rising from the same shared warmth. For a moment, you lie still, watching steam rise from their mouths in the half-light, the shapes of their bodies outlined against the fading glow of last night's fire. You feel the emptiness where the heat used to be, that first shocking touch of cold air on exposed skin. You burrow back instinctively, pulling a fur over your shoulder, and bump into someone's knee. They grunt, roll closer, and for a second, you both share a pocket of trapped warmth again. You can almost hear the sigh of relief your body makes. It's funny how natural it feels now. Humans, you realize, weren't meant to sleep alone. In the Ice Age, warmth came with company. You shift upright, brushing frost from your hair. Around you, the group rearranges itself in slow waves, some sitting up, others still half buried in furs. The children are in the middle, adults around the perimeter, a pattern so instinctive you barely notice it. Warmest in the center, watchful on the edges. Even now, the arrangement feels right, like muscle memory you never learned but always knew. Communal sleeping wasn't just comfort, it was survival strategy. Bodies radiate heat, each person a small living furnace. One human alone might freeze. 10 together create a climate. A mainstream historical fact: studies of traditional Arctic and high-altitude societies show that body heat sharing can raise ambient sleeping temperature by several degrees, enough to prevent hypothermia in sub-zero conditions. Your ancestors didn't need thermometers to prove it. They just needed mornings where everyone woke up. You lie back down for a moment, feeling the familiar pressure of another body beside yours. It's awkward at first, knees bumping, arms shifting, but soon it evens out. The steady exhale of someone else's breath becomes a lullaby, syncing with your heartbeat. The soft crackle of dying embers punctuates the silence. You can almost hear time itself breathing through all of you. Historians still argue whether Ice Age humans slept in tight huddles or looser clusters, depending on social ties or rank. Some suggest family units kept to themselves. Others think warmth ignored hierarchy. The evidence, burn patterns, body impressions, hearth placement, tells fragments of a story, not a clear picture. But you can feel it now. In this world, there's no shame in needing warmth from others. The cold humbles everyone. You turn your head, noticing a small figure still sound asleep near the center. A child, face half buried in fur, one tiny hand gripping the edge of a parent's hide. You smile. Children were the fire's second purpose. It wasn't just about survival in the present. It was about ensuring there was a future to protect. Each night, a small circle of warmth became a cradle for the species, a quirky tidbit. Anthropologists studying hunter-gatherer sleep patterns in modern cold environments found that communal sleeping also served as early climate control. The group's body heat naturally regulated itself. When one person grew too hot and shifted away, another moved closer, balancing the system like a living thermostat. You picture it, a slow, subconscious choreography of comfort, performed every night for tens of thousands of years. You stretch, shifting your weight, and accidentally let a blast of cold air slip under the hides. Instantly, a half-asleep voice mutters something that sounds suspiciously like, "Close the blanket." You grin. Human grouchiness in the morning clearly has ancient roots. The smell of smoke still lingers, blending with the faint musk of fur and breath. It's not unpleasant anymore. It's the scent of belonging, of proof that you're not facing the night alone. You imagine what it would have been like to travel, how every group carried its own microclimate wherever it went, a warmth that existed only when people were together. You glance toward the fire pit, where someone stirs the ashes with a stick. A few embers glow back like sleepy eyes. Soon, fresh wood will crackle again, and the ritual of heat will begin anew. But for now, this small stillness, the time between sleep and dawn, is the truest peace the Ice Age offers. Outside the cave, wind sighs through the grass, tugging faintly at the entrance. Inside, the temperature feels almost bearable. That's the miracle of human adaptation. Not conquering the cold, but negotiating with it through cooperation. There's another side to this story, though. The emotional warmth that came with physical heat. Sharing space like this built trust, empathy, even identity. Maybe it's no coincidence that the word hearth later came to mean home. Where you slept together, you belonged. You remember last night's laughter, the teasing over whose snoring scared off the wolves. You remember the small jokes whispered before sleep, and realize humor itself might have been another way to stay warm. Every chuckle sent a ripple of shared breath through the huddle. A different kind of fire, Some anthropologists even propose that our social bonding hormones, like oxytocin, were reinforced by these nightly rituals. The comfort of skin-to-skin contact, shared breath, synchronized sleep cycles, it all built the scaffolding of trust that made larger communities possible later on. In other words, civilization began under the blanket. You pull the hide tighter around your shoulders, watching the slow ballet of waking humanity. There's something holy about it, this quiet, cooperative choreography, older than any language. It's strange to think that in your modern life, you might go days without touching another person. Here, every night is connection, made literal. Someone offers you a piece of dried meat. You take it, chew slowly, and smile your thanks. The simple exchange feels ceremonial. The start of another day survived. Around you, people begin packing hides, bundling tools, ready to move before the sun fully rises. You glance back at the space where you slept. The furs are still warm in the center, faintly steaming where frost met body heat. You press your palm against the ground, feeling the imprint of where others lay. The earth beneath still holds traces of warmth, as if it remembers too. You step outside, blinking into the pale light. The cold hits, but it doesn't sting as much. Maybe it's the new coat. Maybe it's something deeper. The knowledge that warmth isn't something you find alone. It's something you build together, breath by breath, heartbeat by heartbeat. As the group starts to move, you glance back one last time at the empty spot in the cave, the fading embers glowing like stars in miniature. For a second, you swear they pulse in rhythm with the people walking away, as if the fire itself knows who it belongs to. The first thing you notice after stepping outside the cave is how the cold changes its personality once the sun rises. It's still sharp enough to sting your lungs, but it feels less like an enemy and more like a silent partner, challenging, testing, almost respectful. Your breath plumes white and vanishes in seconds. Beneath your boots, the snow squeaks, that particular high-pitched crunch that only deep cold can make. You know this sound. It's the sound of another long day ahead. The horizon glows, faintly gold, and you start walking. The tribe moves in a loose line, everyone burdened with bundles of furs, tools, and the precious embers wrapped in moss and skin to restart the next fire. You follow footprints that look older than you, pressed deep and half frozen. Every journey in the Ice Age feels like retracing ghosts. Today, you're heading toward a stand of trees that you spotted days ago. Firewood, yes, but more importantly, shelter for the night to come. You already know the rhythm. Walk, hunt, gather, and build before the sun dies. Sleep will only come once the next safe haven is carved out of snow and silence. The cold air makes your eyes water, but you notice something curious. You're not freezing, not exactly. Your layers do their job, and when you move, your body heats itself from the inside out. Movement is life now. Stopping for too long is an invitation for frost to claim your fingers. That's another secret of Ice Age survival. You didn't just find warmth, you generated it. Your ancestors became masters of thermodynamics without ever knowing the word. A mainstream historical fact. Early humans burned anywhere from 3,000 to 5,000 calories a day, just maintaining core temperature and movement in subarctic conditions. They were living furnaces fueled by meat and fat. You think about that as you march. Every bite of mammoth, every sliver of marrow, every greasy mouthful was more than food. It was fire in edible form. A single hunk of mammoth fat could burn for hours as a lamp or sustain a person for days. You grin. Paleo diet fans today would never survive the real thing. Your stomach rumbles at the thought, and as if on cue, someone ahead raises a hand, a signal to stop. You crouch beside them. The snow here is trampled, a faint depression leading toward the frozen stream below. Animal tracks, fresh ones, maybe reindeer, maybe something bigger. Your pulse quickens. Warmth for the body starts with food. The hunters fan out silently, spears in hand. You watch, heart beating fast, as they creep forward. You're not the one throwing, not this time, but you feel every motion, like your own. The rush, the tension, the sharp hiss of breath. When the spear flies, it's over before you blink. The air fills with motion, then stillness again. The hunt succeeds. Later, you help drag the prize, an ice age deer, thick with muscle and fat, back toward a clearing sheltered by trees. The group wastes no time. The animal becomes a dozen things at once: food, fire, clothing, glue. It's all part of the same cycle. Nothing wasted, nothing taken for granted. As the sun begins to drop, you start building your shelter. The snow here is deep enough to carve, and you dig with practiced rhythm, scooping and packing until the hollow takes shape. The wind howls past, but inside, it's almost quiet. You smooth the walls with your gloves and step back to admire your work. A dome of packed snow, low and solid, primitive architecture, but genius in its simplicity. Historians still argue whether Ice Age humans truly built snow houses like modern Inuit, or relied more on hide tents and natural caves. The evidence suggests a mix, whatever materials were at hand. But standing here, carving this refuge, you realize it doesn't matter. The instinct to make shelter runs deeper than history. You crawl inside to test it. The sound of the outside world dulls immediately, like slipping underwater. It's warmer, too. Shockingly so. Snow, you remember, is an insulator. It traps air, keeps warmth in. The first time someone realized that, they must have felt like they'd cheated death. You line the floor with branches and hides, tamping them down into a soft layer. Someone hands you a burning brand from the rekindled fire, and you place it carefully in a small stone bowl near the entrance. The faint smoke curls upward, kissing the roof before escaping through a vent hole. Light, warmth, protection, all inside a mound of frozen water. Humans, 1, nature, 0. A quirky tidbit, there's archaeological evidence from Ice Age sites showing that some shelters were even decorated, red ochre smeared along walls, animal bones arranged in patterns, perhaps as charms or symbols of gratitude. You imagine yourself smearing a streak of pigment above the sleeping area, whispering something half between a prayer and a thank you. Outside, the wind picks up again, a lonely moan through the trees. You pull the hide flap closed and sit in the soft glow of firelight. The group settles in, close but not cramped. You pass around strips of roasted meat, the smell rich and smoky. Someone cracks a joke about mammoth fat being the best pillow stuffing. You laugh mid-bite, nearly choking. Humor, again, the ancient heat source that never runs out. You think about how movement, building, eating, and resting are all parts of the same rhythm. There's no separation between work and survival, between life and warmth. You live in cycles of motion and stillness, heat and cold. Maybe that's why this time feels pure, uncomplicated. Every action is a direct answer to nature's question: are you still alive? The fire sputters, sending brief sparks into the air. You shift closer, your body relaxing as heat seeps through your layers. You're tired, but it's a good kind of tired. The kind that means you've earned another night. Outside, the snow keeps falling, erasing your footprints from earlier. It's quiet now, deeply quiet. You can hear your own breath echo faintly inside the dome. It's strange to think that while glaciers crawl across the land, you, a fragile mammal, sit here wrapped in hides and laughter, refusing to freeze. You stretch out on the furs, feeling the warmth pool around you. The snow house holds steady, the fire dimming to a low red glow. Your eyelids droop, and you murmur something half-formed, a wish, a promise, a thought about tomorrow's hunt. Then, before sleep claims you, a final joke slips through your mind. If you ever complained about your bedroom being too cold, try a few thousand years without walls. You wake before dawn to a soft, creaking sound. Snow settling over your shelter, tightening the dome like a slow exhale. For a moment, you're disoriented. The walls glow faintly blue in the half-light, and the air smells faintly of wood smoke and animal fat. You stretch, testing your limbs. They move easily. You're alive, warm enough, ready. It's a quiet victory that feels almost sacred. The others stir slowly. The small fire in the stone bowl has died down to glowing coals, and someone leans forward, blowing gently until the orange sparks bloom again. The tiny burst of light dances on the curved walls, making them shimmer like ice crystals caught in sunrise. You watch, hypnotized. Fire and snow, a paradox you now call home. You crawl out through the tunnel entrance and emerge into a landscape glittering with frost. The cold grabs your lungs, sharp and metallic, but it's clean, almost exhilarating. Your footprints crunch in the crusted snow as you walk toward the nearby stream. It's frozen, but the ice is thin near the edges, where water still whispers beneath. You crouch down, breaking the surface with a flint knife, and scoop a handful to drink. The water burns cold on your tongue, but quenches the dryness in your throat. Hydration in the Ice Age was a tricky business. You couldn't just eat snow, it sapped precious body heat. Instead, you melted ice with coals or used warm animal fat to help thaw it safely. Historians still argue whether certain groups carried heated stones, wrapped in hides to melt snow on the move. Either way, you've learned to be careful. Every sip is a trade with the cold. You return to camp, where the group is already packing. The shelter that saved you last night will be left behind. Snow walls collapsing gently after you go, returning to the landscape as if they were never there. Transience is your constant companion. You've learned not to get attached to places, only to people and fire. As you prepare to leave, you notice a faint ring of prints near the edge of camp. Wolf tracks, maybe 2 or 3 animals, circling during the night. They must have watched, smelling food and warmth, but keeping their distance from the firelight. You shiver, not from cold this time, but from the reminder that the Ice Age isn't empty. It's crowded with hungry neighbors. A mainstream historical fact: Ice Age Europe and Asia were shared with apex predators, like cave lions, hyenas, dire wolves, and saber-toothed cats. Humans weren't at the top of the food chain yet. In many ways, you were still just another creature trying not to freeze or be eaten. You sling your pack of hides over your shoulder and join the others. Movement keeps the blood flowing. The path ahead leads through a low valley where the wind funnels like a river. You pull your hood tight, hunch your shoulders, and trudge forward. Each step crunches into ice, the sound rhythmic, meditative. Hours pass. The sun crawls higher, but gives no warmth. You pass a scattering of bones, half buried in snow, a reminder that even giants fall. Maybe mammoth, maybe bison. Someone stops to chip at one with a stone tool, collecting marrow for later. You nod approvingly. Out here, waste is sin. By midday, you find shelter again. This time, a rock overhang streaked with ancient soot. You recognize the blackened walls, the faint smell of char. Someone's been here before, maybe years ago, maybe centuries. You wonder if they survived. The thought gives you a strange comfort. You're part of a long relay of endurance, each generation handing off knowledge, like a torch. You set up camp quickly. Firewood is scarce, but the hunters return with armfuls of dried brush and branches. Soon, flames leap again, crackling bright in the dim cave. You sit close, letting the heat soak into your bones. That's when you notice the walls. Lines, faint but deliberate, etched into the stone. Shapes of animals, bison, mammoth, maybe even a horse. Someone drew their world here, their hope, their memory. You trace the lines with your finger, feeling the groove left by another human hand. A quirky tidbit. Some archaeologists believe the flicker of firelight was part of the art itself. When the flames danced, the shadows made the animals seem to move, running, charging, breathing. A prehistoric animation, thousands of years before cinema. You grin, imagining some Ice Age teenager saying, "Wait for it. It looks better when the fire flickers." The group settles in. Someone hums softly, a melody so low, it almost blends with the crackle of the fire. It's not a song you know, but it feels familiar anyway. Slow, circular, ancient. The rhythm matches your heartbeat, your breathing. You close your eyes for a moment and let it carry you. Historians still argue whether early humans sang more for ritual or comfort. But here, in this firelit shelter, you're sure it's both. The melody warms the air in ways the flames can't. It fills the space, pushing back the dark. Later, as night deepens, the group eats together. You chew on roasted venison, watching the sparks float upward like tiny stars. The cave amplifies every sound. The crack of bone, the murmur of voices, the occasional laugh. It feels like the universe has shrunk to this small, bright center, a single flame in a world of ice. When it's time to sleep, you find a spot against the rock wall, fur wrapped tight around you. The air inside the cave holds just enough warmth to be bearable. Outside, the wind howls like something alive. You press your hand against the stone, feeling its cold pulse. And you think about how fragile and fierce humans are at the same time. You have no claws, no thick hide, no fangs, just cleverness, fire, and each other. Yet somehow, that's enough. Your eyes drift shut. The fire pops one last time, echoing through the stone like a heartbeat. You imagine the ice, outside stretching endlessly, ancient and patient. But here, in this circle of warmth, you've carved a space where life insists on continuing. You smile, thinking of some future generation, looking back and wondering how you did it. Maybe they'll find this place someday. Your footprints fossilized, your fire pit turned to ash, and they'll ask the same question you began with. How did humans sleep through the Ice Age without freezing to death? And the answer, you know now, is simple. They didn't fight the cold alone. They danced with it, dreamed through it, and turned survival into art. The storm finds you before dawn. You wake to the hiss of snow driven sideways, grains of ice scraping against stone like sandpaper. The cave mouth glows, faintly gray, but the world beyond it has vanished into a white blur. The wind moans, a hollow, endless sound that feels more alive than any creature you've hunted. You stay where you are, still wrapped in hides, watching the smoke from the dying fire spiral in strange directions. It's too dangerous to move now. Your breath fogs and hangs in the air like a ghost. Everyone's quiet, conserving energy, waiting. You've learned patience from the ice. It teaches by force. Outside, the snow thickens. Inside, the group's shared warmth becomes the only weather that matters. You shift slightly, feeling the ground cold beneath you. The fire's nearly gone, but there's just enough ember to coax back to life. You crawl forward, feed it a handful of dried moss and tiny twigs. It catches reluctantly, sputters, then steadies into flame. That small victory, the flicker of light, always feels miraculous. Fire isn't just warmth, it's mood, a mainstream historical fact. Control of fire stretches back nearly 1,000,000 years. But Ice Age humans refined it into ritual. They carried embers wrapped in moss or hollow bones, tended flames like pets, and sometimes even buried ashes beneath sleeping pits to radiate heat upward through the night. You do the same now, sprinkling a few coals into a shallow hollow beneath your bedding. Within minutes, the air warms slightly. Genius, you think, in a prehistoric sort of way. Someone nearby mutters a soft joke, something about sleeping on dragon eggs. The group chuckles quietly. Humor, even now. You grin, feeling the absurdity of it all. Outside, the world could kill you in minutes. Inside, you're making jokes about imaginary dragons. The storm rages for hours. The cave walls hum with the vibration of wind. Sometimes, a gust squeezes through the entrance, swirling smoke and snowflakes around the fire. You huddle deeper under your furs, watching the dance of orange light and gray air. It's hypnotic. The sound of the storm merges with the crackle of flames until both become a lullaby. Historians still argue whether Ice Age humans saw storms as natural phenomena or spirits in anger. Some cave etchings show swirling lines, jagged shapes that might represent wind or thunder. You can almost understand the logic. When you hear the wind shriek like this, you can't help but imagine something out there, ancient and watching. A quirky tidbit. In some parts of Ice Age Europe, archaeologists found clusters of bones arranged near cave entrances, possibly to block drafts, but maybe also as talismans. Mammoth skulls, bison femurs, even antlers stacked like a barrier between worlds. You eye the pile of leftover bones from last night, meal, and wonder if it's time to build your own Lucky Charm wall. You lean back, closing your eyes. Sleep doesn't come easily during storms. The sound plays tricks on your mind. Gusts that sound like footsteps. Shifting snow that mimics whispers. You drift between waking and dreaming, half listening to the storm's strange rhythm. Then, unexpectedly, silence. Not total, but muted. The storm begins to fade. You open your eyes and realize the light filtering through the entrance has changed, from gray to pale gold. The blizzard has moved on. The group stirs. Someone laughs softly in disbelief. as if you've collectively survived a test. You crawl toward the entrance, careful not to disturb the snow piled high against it. You dig a small tunnel upward and push through, emerging into a blinding world. The sky is finally clear, vast and painfully blue. The storm left behind a smooth, untouched landscape, glittering like powdered glass. The air is so still now, it almost feels warm. You take a deep breath. Your lungs sting, but it's glorious. Every branch, every rock, every ridge wears a crown of ice. The sun reflects off everything at once, dazzling your eyes until you squint. You turn slowly, taking it all in. Beauty, you realize, isn't a luxury here. It's fuel for the soul. You need it to remember why survival matters. You call back into the cave, your voice muffled by the snow. Clear skies, you announce. Though no one really doubts you, the others crawl out one by one, blinking at the light, stretching like bears after hibernation. Laughter ripples through the group, a release of tension so pure it feels like warmth. You help rebuild the fire outside now, stacking stones into a windbreak. The flames leap high, reflecting off the snow like tiny suns. You hold your hands over it, letting the heat bite pleasantly at your skin. For the first time in days, you can feel your face thawing. Someone pulls out a half-frozen strip of meat and lays it on a flat stone near the fire to warm. You grin. It's practically gourmet compared to some nights. You chew slowly, the salt and smoke grounding you in the moment. Every meal in this world is a ceremony of gratitude. Then, as if the ice itself is listening, a sound cuts through the calm, a deep, echoing crack. The ground trembles faintly under your feet. Far in the distance, you see it, a glacier shifting, breaking off a slab the size of a small hill. The ice groans, collapses, and settles again with a sound like thunder, slowed to half speed. You all fall silent, watching. It's awe, not fear. That's the heartbeat of the ice age, the earth itself breathing. You look back toward your cave, still half buried in snow. It seems smaller now, almost fragile, and yet that small shelter defied the glacier, the storm, the cold. You feel pride rise in your chest, not just for yourself, but for every human who ever stared into a storm and decided to build a fire anyway. You think about how the ice has shaped you, humbled you, hardened you, and strangely, humanized you. The storm wasn't the enemy. It was the teacher. You turn toward the others. Someone's already telling a story, gesturing animatedly, their hands tracing the shape of the wind. It's a retelling of the night's battle with the storm, but the details grow wilder with each sentence. Within minutes, it's half legend already. You laugh. That's another human trick, turning fear into folklore. The sun climbs higher. The ice around you sparkles like it's made of tiny fires. You close your eyes for a moment, feeling the warmth on your eyelids, and think, yes, maybe you could sleep here again tonight. The storm may come again, but you'll be ready. With fire, with laughter, with each other, you move again at dawn. The snow crisp beneath your boots, and the horizon painted in pink and gold. The storm's memory lingers only in the glittering drifts and the faint ache in your muscles. Every step forward feels like progress, a small, stubborn refusal to stop existing. The air is clear enough now that you can see the world for miles. Rolling white plains broken by black rock ridges, thin rivers of mist curling from valleys, and far away, something moving. Herds. Your heart quickens. The hunt is life. You glance at the others. They've noticed too. The group pauses on a rise, the breath from your mouths, rising like smoke signals. Below, scattered across the tundra, the shaggy shapes of reindeer graze between patches of frozen moss. You can almost feel the warmth of their bodies from here, the potential of it. Food, hide, bone, sinew, light, all walking on four legs. You start to plan. Not aloud. This is a language of glances and gestures. Two of the hunters will flank left, downwind. Another will circle toward the riverbed. You will stay near the ridge, ready to drive the herd toward the waiting spears. The rhythm of the hunt feels older than speech itself, a mainstream historical fact. Ice Age hunters coordinated complex group strategies, using voice calls, hand signals, even prearranged stone markers to corral large game. Sites like Dolny Vestonitz and La Côte de Saint-Berlade show evidence of entire teams working in sync, driving mammoths or reindeer into traps. You can imagine it now. The heartbeat synchronization of the human pack. You move silently through the snow, crouched low, your breath shallow. Every sound matters here. A misplaced crunch, a cough, and the herd scatters. You watch the lead reindeer, ears twitching, nostrils steaming. For a moment, the world holds its breath. Then a sharp whistle, a signal, and movement explodes. You run. The cold burns your lungs as you sprint downhill, shouting, waving your arms. The reindeer panic, surging forward into the narrowing path between two rock outcrops. Spears fly, their flight so smooth it looks practiced 1,000 times. The first strike hits, then another. The herd scatters, but not all escape. When the chaos settles, the snow is marked by dark shapes and red streaks. You kneel beside the fallen, heart pounding, chest heaving. There's no celebration. Not yet. The air feels heavy, thick with steam and breath. You place your hand on the animal's neck, whispering something between respect and apology. The others gather silently, and together you begin the work. The knives flash. The smell of iron and life fills the air. The meat is cut quickly, efficiently. Every piece has a purpose. You collect fat in one pouch, sinew in another. Someone sets aside a strip of skin, still warm, to wrap the remaining embers from last night's fire, fresh insulation for the journey. A quirky tidbit, Ice Age hunters sometimes used animal stomachs as portable refrigerators, packing them with snow to keep meat fresh during migration. You imagine the first person who thought of that, probably after discovering that frozen leftovers taste surprisingly fine. You roast a few small pieces on a makeshift stone grill, right there in the open. The fire smokes blue in the wind, and the scent makes your mouth water. You chew slowly, savoring the richness that melts across your tongue. Warmth spreads through your body in waves. It's not just hunger that's being fed. It's the primitive joy of triumph over the cold. Historians still argue whether early humans preferred to eat their meat cooked or raw in extreme conditions. Some evidence points to both, depending on fuel availability. You figure the answer was simple, whichever kept you alive longer. As you eat, you glance up at the sky. A flock of ravens circles above, waiting for what you'll leave behind. You don't mind. Nothing goes to waste out here, not even leftovers. The circle of life isn't just poetic, it's brutally efficient. When the butchering is done, you help drag the remaining portions back to camp. The fire is stronger now, and the group feels lighter. The storm is forgotten. Warmth and food rewrite the mood instantly. You've earned rest tonight, and you can already feel the promise of deep, dreamless sleep. Before dusk, You hang strips of meat over smoke, watching them darken and curl. The smell fills the air, sweet, oily, comforting. The smoke itself clings to your hair, your clothes, your skin. You're going to smell like dinner for days. But in this world, that's a badge of success. You take a moment to yourself, stepping away from the camp to where the land dips into shadow. The reindeer herd has vanished into the distance, just silhouettes now against the horizon. You watch them go, feeling a strange mix of pride and melancholy. You've taken from them what you need, but you also owe them your next breath. That's the Ice Age's quiet contract. Respect the exchange or perish. You think of something you once heard an elder say. The ice takes what it wants and gives what it must. You didn't understand it then, but you do now. Survival here isn't conquest, it's conversation. The sky darkens. Stars bloom, one by one, scattered diamonds against velvet black. The wind has softened, carrying only faint whispers of movement. You head back to the fire, where others are laughing softly. Someone is using a reindeer rib as a makeshift flute, coaxing out notes that sound almost human. Music again. Another warmth no storm can steal. You settle down beside the flames, belly full, body heavy with exhaustion. The furs cradle you, the air inside the camp shimmering with the heat of life. You can feel the day's cold fading from your bones, replaced by a gentle, spreading calm. As you drift toward sleep, you think about how humans learned to live with the ice, not against it. Every act of adaptation, fire, shelter, hunting, sharing, feels less like defiance and more like partnership. You close your eyes, listening to the faint rhythm of the rib flute, and imagine that somewhere in the distance, the herd's heartbeat answers it. You smile before you sleep, because you finally understand something simple and profound. Warmth isn't just a temperature, it's a story told over and over. From one fire to the next, you wake before sunrise, a faint ache in your muscles, reminding you of yesterday's hunt. The fire's low, just red dust in the center of the camp, but the air inside the shelter still holds a ghost of warmth. You sit up slowly, pull a fur tighter around your shoulders, and listen. All is quiet, the kind of stillness that only happens before dawn, when the world seems to pause between breaths. You step outside. The snow glows blue beneath the dim sky, and the horizon is a wash of silver light. Your footprints from the day before are already half buried. The land erases everything so easily here. Still, the shapes of the camp, hearthstones, bones, and smoke-blackened sticks make a small signature of human defiance. You look at it and realize something strange. These scraps, this mess, might one day be all that's left of you, a mainstream historical fact. Archaeologists have uncovered ancient sleep sites showing just that. Tiny traces of fire ash, compacted grass, and scattered bones, preserved for tens of thousands of years. In South Africa's border cave, for instance, scientists found layers of burnt bedding made from rushes and insect-repelling plants, replaced again and again as people moved through. The evidence speaks quietly, but clearly. Humans cared about where they lay their heads, even when the world froze. You crouch near your own sleeping spot, noticing the faint depression where your body pressed into the furs. The ground still radiates a bit of heat from the embers buried beneath. You imagine someone, thousands of years from now, kneeling in this same spot, dusting snow from a thin layer of ash and whispering, "Someone slept here." It's a funny thought. You, a mystery in a future museum. You smirk and mutter, "Hope they say I looked good doing it." You start helping the others tidy camp. Bones are gathered into neat piles, some cracked open for marrow, others saved to make tools. A few are tossed into the fire for disposal, their smell sharp and strange. Someone scrapes the sleeping furs, shaking out bits of char and snow. You catch the rhythm of it, the comforting normalcy. Every small act of order is an act of rebellion against chaos. Nearby, a hunter gestures toward a flat rock near the cave wall. On it lies a blackened patch surrounded by cracked stones. "Hearth memory," he says. The words come out of his mouth, half jokingly, but you like the sound. Hearth memory. You think of the dozens of fires you've rebuilt this season alone, how each one had its own life and death, each one a chapter, a quirky tidbit. Some archaeologists believe Ice Age groups returned to the same sleeping sites over generations, treating them like ancestral rest stops. In certain caves, they've found multiple layers of ash and charcoal separated by centuries, as if families kept visiting the same cozy nook again and again, generation after generation. You can almost picture it. One child sleeping where a great-great-grandparent once did, both dreaming beneath the same ceiling of stars or stone. Historians still argue whether these patterns meant deliberate tradition or simple convenience. Was it nostalgia or just good real estate? You lean toward the first. In your gut, you know people don't just go where it's easy, they go where it feels like home. You glance at the soot marks on the cave wall, half smudged but still visible. Someone's handprint, maybe. You press your palm over it. The size matches. Maybe they were your age. Maybe they too woke early and stared at the sky, wondering if they'd survive another winter. You whisper to the unseen past, "We did okay, huh?" The morning brightens fast. Soon the camp buzzes with life again. Chatter, the scrape of stone tools, the hum of daily necessity. You join in, repairing a spear tip with sinew while others stretch hides on wooden frames. The tasks are repetitive, but the rhythm feels sacred. Life, after all, is maintenance. You notice the youngest member of your group crouching near a shallow pit, poking at something shiny. You walk over and see it, the gleam of obsidian flakes, half buried in frost. Tiny, sharp, perfect. Someone dropped them long ago. You pick one up, turning it between your fingers. Its edges catch the sunlight, cold and lethal. You tuck it into your pouch. Something in you wants to keep it close. Later that day, you all move to explore a new valley. The landscape changes subtly. Less snow, more rock, patches of stubborn grass. You find a ledge overlooking a frozen river and decide it will make a good base for a few nights. The first thing you do, instinctively, is build the sleeping area. Stones arranged in a ring, grass layered beneath furs, fire at the center. It's all so practiced now, muscle memory. But every time you do it, it feels important, ceremonial almost, like saying, "Here we belong, if only for a while." That night, as you settle by the new fire, you can't help but imagine the distant future again. Maybe, thousands of years from now, someone will find the char of this very hearth, analyze the pollen in the bedding, study the bones for cut marks. They'll reconstruct your life from what you leave behind: the soot, the ash, the tiny impressions of your fingers on a stone tool. They'll write papers, debate theories, and give you names you never chose. You grin in the firelight, amused at the thought you better tell the story right. You whisper, to the imaginary archaeologist. Don't forget the jokes, the songs, the naps that saved us. The others laugh when they hear you muttering to the dirt. But you don't mind, because beneath the humor, there's truth. You understand now that survival isn't just about food or warmth. It's about memory. The Earth keeps it layer by layer. You've become part of the planet's library. You stretch out on your bedding, letting the day drain away. The fire crackles softly, echoing off the stone walls. The night is calm, the stars sharp. You think of every ancient sleeper before you, their breaths mingling with yours across time. You imagine them whispering from their layers of ash, reminding you that humanity didn't just endure the Ice Age, it dreamed through it. Your eyes grow heavy, your body warm from the fire, your heart strangely full. Somewhere in your mind, you hear a voice that might belong to the earth itself. Rest, I'll remember you. You smile at that thought, drifting into a sleep so deep it feels eternal, trusting that tomorrow's footprints will join the countless others before them. The next morning, a soft wind curls through the valley, whispering through the rocks and stirring the ashes of your fire. You stretch, yawn, and glance at the horizon. The ice glows faint pink under the first light. You can tell from the color that it'll be a calm day, good weather for stories. Everyone's moving slowly, the kind of laziness that only comes after days of survival, stacked on survival. There's meat drying on racks, tools being sharpened half-heartedly, and somewhere behind you, two children are tracing shapes in the frost with sticks. You hear laughter, rare, precious, and contagious. You grin and walk toward them. The shapes they've drawn aren't random. Lines, spirals, figures with arms stretched wide. You crouch beside them, your knees popping like old wood. Who's that supposed to be? You ask, pointing to one figure with an enormous round head. The dream caller, one of the kids says proudly. He brings warm dreams. You chuckle. Does he? What happens if you forget to thank him? They look at each other, then whisper dramatically. Then you wake up with frozen feet. You laugh, but it hits you. These aren't just children's games. This is myth-making, the invisible warmth that keeps minds from icing over. A mainstream historical fact. Cave art and carved figurines from the Upper Paleolithic often show figures scholars think might represent dream spirits, fertility symbols, or protective deities. The famous Venus figures, for instance, may have been charms for comfort and survival during the coldest seasons. You imagine one of your people carving a tiny form from bone, pressing it into the snow beside their sleeping spot, and murmuring a wish for peaceful rest. You sit with the children, adding your own drawing, a crude spiral that represents fire. That's the heart of the world, you say. They nod solemnly, as though you've said something profound. You almost feel wise for a moment, until your stomach growls, loud enough to make them giggle. You grin. The heart of the world's also hungry, apparently. The camp wakes fully by mid-morning, and soon the stories begin. Storytelling isn't a hobby here. It's necessity. The words keep your minds sharp, your fears manageable, your nights from stretching too long. Around the fire, the air fills with soft voices, each telling some version of a truth half remembered. There's one tale about the first fire, stolen from a mountain spirit by a clever woman who tricked it into laughter. Another about a hunter who followed the stars across the ice and found a lake so warm it sang at night. A third, darker one, about a man who tried to sleep through winter and woke up a wolf. You can feel the hairs on your arms rise at that one. Historians still argue whether Ice Age myths and symbols represent shared religions or simply shared anxieties. Attempts to name the unknowable forces that froze and fed them. You think it doesn't matter what the scholars decide. What matters is how these stories feel. When the firelight flickers and the snow outside hums like a sleeping beast, belief itself becomes insulation. A quirky tidbit: at some archaeological sites, carved bones and antlers with rhythmic notches have been found near hearths. Some researchers believe they might be early musical notation or tally marks for stories told in sequence. You imagine someone tapping those bones against stone, keeping time for the storyteller, like the first drumbeat in human memory. The day passes softly, the rhythm of speech and laughter slower than usual, like a long exhale after weeks of tension. You find yourself listening more than talking, tracing circles in the frost with a stick, letting the words of others drift around you. One of the elders begins a song, a deep, wavering tone that vibrates through your ribs. The melody is simple, but it carries something powerful, like a heartbeat stretched into sound. It's the kind of song that doesn't ask for understanding. It asks for surrender. You close your eyes and hum along. When the song ends, there's silence for a while. Even the wind seems to pause in respect. Someone throws another piece of wood on the fire, and sparks shoot upward, swirling toward the dusk. You watch them fade, each ember a tiny star's rehearsal. You think about how these stories, songs, and drawings survive, not on walls or stones, but in people. The ice will take the bodies, the tools, the hides, but it can't freeze the rhythm of a story once it's told. It travels mouth to mouth, breath to breath. That's how warmth truly moves across generations. You remember something your grandmother once said before the journey began: if the ice hears you tell a good story, it lets you live to tell another. You didn't take her seriously back then, but now, sitting here with your people safe and laughing, you whisper to the horizon, "You listening, Ice? That one was pretty good." The night deepens. The stars crowd the sky so thickly it feels like they're pressing closer just to listen. You lie back on your furs, hands behind your head, and look upward. The Milky Way stretches across the black, bright as frost on stone. Someone nearby murmurs, "The ancestors are awake tonight." You nod, half believing it. Maybe they are. Maybe the stars themselves are the first fire still burning. You think about how myths outlast everything: storms, bones, even memory. They wrap themselves around sleep, guarding the fragile warmth inside it. Maybe that's why humans never froze to death in spirit. Even when the world tried to turn them to ice, a stray snowflake drifts down and lands on your nose. You laugh quietly. The universe has a sense of humor after all. You close your eyes and let the soft murmur of voices fade into a dream. The dream caller, you think, can have the rest of your story tonight. By morning, the valley feels alive again. The storm-scoured silence of the last few days has given way to the busy noise of living things: the low groan of ice shifting on the river, the clicking of birds' wings overhead, even the faint crunch of snow as small animals dart between rocks. You sit by the fire, hands wrapped around a steaming cup of melted snow mixed with fat, and realize the Ice Age isn't dead. It's teeming. You watch a fox pick its way across the ridge, its fur thick and silver-tipped, tail like a plume of smoke. It pauses, ears twitching, watching you in return. For a heartbeat, it feels like the two of you understand each other. Two creatures shaped by cold, living on opposite edges of the same survival story. Then it vanishes into the white, a mainstream historical fact. During the Pleistocene, countless species adapted alongside humans. Woolly mammoths, cave bears, reindeer, saber-toothed cats, woolly rhinoceroses. Each evolved extraordinary traits to endure the long freeze, while humans adapted through innovation rather than anatomy. You realize that while most animals wore their survival as fur, you wore yours as fire and thought. You and your group spend the morning tracking signs of movement along the valley floor. Prints, scat, faint scuffs of hooves. You've learned to read the ground like a storybook. Every indentation a sentence about what passed and when. You notice fresh prints leading to a small hollow where the snow has melted into a ring of trampled grass. A reindeer herd must have slept here. The heat of their bodies left an imprint, a memory of warmth frozen into the landscape. You crouch and press your palm into one of the indentations. It's almost like touching time itself. You imagine how it must have felt to sleep in a herd, close together, dozens of heartbeats radiating warmth. You smile at the thought. They know the trick too, you murmur. You start comparing them to your own group. Humans huddle, animals herd. It's the same principle, with different choreography. There's something comforting in that symmetry. You're not alone in your techniques. Nature figured out all the best ideas long before humans claimed credit. Historians still argue whether Ice Age humans learned warmth behavior by observing animals. Some suggest that watching how wolves shared dens or how reindeer formed tight sleeping circles inspired communal sleeping patterns among people. You think it's likely. Out here, inspiration's not a luxury, it's a survival mechanism. You learn from whatever still breathes. A quirky tidbit. In certain Siberian sites, archaeologists have found evidence of mammoth bone huts, insulated with thick hides and turf, sometimes arranged in circular clusters, almost like oversized animal burrows, built by people imitating the beasts they depended on. You picture it now, human dens dotting the frozen plains, smoke rising from each one like the breath of giant moles. The thought makes you laugh quietly. So, we're just clever burrowers, you say to yourself. Fancy foxes with tools. Later in the day, you pause by the river, watching an otter break through thin ice, slip into black water, and emerge glistening with cold. It shakes itself, completely unbothered, while you stand wrapped in layers of hide, teeth chattering from mere observation. You envy it for a moment, its built-in warmth, its natural insulation. Then you realize something. Envy's misplaced. You might not have fur, but you have imagination, and imagination builds fur of its own kind. You glance up as a group of birds cuts across the pale sky, flying in a perfect V. Their formation wobbles slightly, then reforms, each individual adjusting, compensating, trusting. You think of your own small band, hunters, gatherers, children, elders. You too fly in your own messy V, surviving because everyone adjusts when someone falters. The cold deepens as the sun dips lower. You head back toward camp, the wind tugging at your hood. The others are already gathered near the fire, roasting marrow bones and singing softly. Someone jokes about sleeping like bears tonight, and you laugh, remembering the countless stories that claim ancient people hibernated during the harshest months. It's true, some researchers still flirt with that idea. Certain skeletal remains show signs of metabolic slowdown, like seasonal fasting. Historians still argue whether Ice Age humans ever entered a light hibernation, spending days half awake, conserving energy. You imagine the scene. Whole families in dark caves, breathing slowly, fires smoldering low, dreams stretching into weeks. The idea both fascinates and unnerves you. You curl up near the fire, watching sparks rise into the cold night air. Maybe we did, you whisper. Maybe we still do, just differently now. The others don't hear you, but the idea lingers. As the stars unfold, the conversation drifts to animals again. Wolves that guard the camp, reindeer that guide migrations, mammoths that once thundered across the plains like living mountains. You realize each animal isn't just a resource, it's a teacher. They've all shown you something about surviving the cold. Wolves taught cooperation, mammoths taught endurance, reindeer taught movement, even the little fox from earlier taught stealth and grace. And humans, you suppose you taught the ice that you're not easy to erase. A playful thought crosses your mind. Imagine, you say aloud, if they could all talk, the mammoth would complain about taxes. The wolf would tell us to stop stealing its aesthetic. The fox would ask for rent. The group laughs, soft and tired. Laughter still feels like the warmest invention of all. You lean back, letting the conversation drift into murmurs. The fire hums beside you, steady and alive. You stare at the flames until they blur, turning into the shapes of all those creatures dancing together. The mammoth's slow sway, the wolf's sharp leap, the bird's steady glide. The Ice Age, you realize, isn't a war of species. It's a long, intricate waltz, every step choreographed by necessity. And in that dance, humans found their rhythm. Not the fastest, not the strongest, but perhaps the most enduring. You made warmth out of nothing, meaning out of danger, stories out of silence. Maybe that's what set you apart. You didn't just survive the cold, you gave it company. As you drift towards sleep, you hear the faint hoot of an owl echo from somewhere beyond the ridge. The sound is low, resonant, ancient. You smile in the dark and whisper, "Good night, teacher." Your body relaxes, breath slowing, heartbeat sinking again with the rhythm of the earth, the shared pulse of every living thing that refuses to stop breathing. No matter how long the winter lasts, the morning breaks soft and gray, light seeping gently through a sky thick with cloud. The air is still, almost reverent, as if the ice itself pauses to listen. You wake slowly, blinking against the dimness. The fire reduced to faint, red veins beneath a crust of ash. Around you, your people stir, stretching, sighing, murmuring half-dreams into the chilly air. You sit up and listen to the small sounds of survival. Someone shaking frost from a pelt, another cracking ice off the rim of a pot, the faint clack of a stone tool being reshaped. There's peace in the repetition. It's the rhythm of existence outlasting everything that tries to silence it. You wrap your fur cloak tighter and step outside. The wind is barely a whisper, and the world spreads vast and pale in every direction. The snow is crusted over, glittering faintly beneath the clouds. To the east, the mountains look closer today, their jagged spines softened by mist. You breathe in deeply, and the air tastes clean, sharp, pure, the kind of cold that almost feels medicinal. The Ice Age has a way of clearing you out from the inside. You think of everything it's taken: warmth, ease, safety, but you also think of everything it's given: discipline, awareness, community, awe. Every night you've slept without freezing is a quiet victory, each one a note in the long song of human persistence, a mainstream historical fact. By the end of the last ice age, around 12,000 years ago, temperatures began to rise. The glaciers receded. Rivers roared again. Forests returned. The people who had survived the frost were already masters of adaptation, carrying millennia of knowledge about shelter, fire, and food into the warming world. You realize that those who came after you, those who built villages, farms, and cities, owed their existence to nights like these, to people who learned how to sleep in the cold and dream anyway. You turn and look at your camp, smoke curling gently from the dying fire. Soon you'll move again. You always do. The ice doesn't let anyone stay still for long, but the skills you've gathered, layering grass under hides, banking coals for slow heat, curling against another body for shared warmth, those will move with you. They'll travel through blood and memory until they become instinct, passed from one generation to the next, like a secret handshake with survival itself. You grin at the thought. Congratulations, you murmur to yourself. You invented bedtime, a quirky tidbit. Some archaeologists suggest that even after the Ice Age ended, people continued sleeping in bundled, fire-centered arrangements long into the Neolithic, a practice that quietly influenced how early houses were designed. Round huts with central hearths weren't just architectural choices. They were the continuation of a habit born under glaciers. Historians still argue whether that persistence was practical or sentimental. Was it warmth or was it comfort? You suspect it was both. Humans rarely abandon what makes them feel safe, even when the climate no longer demands it. You walk down to the riverbank, where the ice is thinner. You crouch and peer into the dark water below, the reflection of your face trembling slightly with the current. You look older, leaner, eyes sharpened by months of endurance. But there's something else in your reflection too, a calm acceptance. You no longer flinch at the cold. You understand it. You've learned its language. Behind you, someone calls your name, offering a strip of dried meat. You take it, chew thoughtfully, and gaze out at the vastness one last time. You know you'll leave footprints here that the next snowfall will erase, but that's never bothered you. The ice forgets everything except the lessons. The day passes in quiet work, packing hides, cleaning tools, wrapping embers in moss for the next fire. When everything's ready, you look back at the hollow where you slept. It's barely visible now, just a smooth depression in the snow. You run your hand over it and smile. It's strange, but this patch of earth feels like an old friend. You whisper your thanks, not out of superstition, but out of gratitude. Then you turn north, following the group as they begin to move, slow and steady, shadows stretching long across the snow. The wind rises again as you walk, curling around your body in soft, spiraling motions, almost affectionate. You pull your hood tight and glance over your shoulder at the fading camp. The fire's last smoke thread vanishes into the clouds. You smile and keep walking, because you know now why humans didn't freeze. It wasn't just fire or fat or clever shelters. It was will. It was the refusal to surrender warmth of spirit, even when the world's warmth disappeared. It was the ability to turn necessity into ritual, fear into story, cold into kinship. You survived because you made the cold part of you. And as the last light fades behind the mountains, you feel it. Not triumph, not relief, but peace. The ice taught you what it meant to be human. Fragile, adaptable, endlessly inventive, and always capable of finding warmth in the most unlikely places. You trudge onward, your breath steady, your heart matching the rhythm of the earth beneath its frozen skin. Each step feels lighter, freer. You are not the hunted thing anymore. You are the witness, the memory, the dream that will outlast the cold. You whisper into the wind, half to yourself, half to the future. We made it through the longest night. The journey slows now. The snow softens beneath your feet. The edges of sound blur, and even your heartbeat begins to feel like part of the landscape. You imagine yourself lying down one last time, not from exhaustion, but from understanding. The fire nearby flickers low, painting slow amber shapes across the walls of a world that's finally beginning to thaw. Breathe in once more. The air is no longer cruel. It's crisp, awake, forgiving. You feel the cold, not as an enemy, but as a familiar companion. It brushes against your cheek like an old friend saying goodbye. You close your eyes, listening to the faint rustle of wind over snow, the faraway cry of something alive, and the soft pulse of your own breath. Every ember, every heartbeat, every story you've carried through the ice glows inside you now. The cold can't take that. It never could. You understand, in a way that words can barely hold, that warmth isn't fire, it's connection. It's the shared blanket, the quiet laugh in the dark, the unspoken promise that no one sleeps alone in the frost. The night folds around you like a calm tide. The stars blink softly above, distant but familiar. Somewhere, far ahead, spring waits. But for now, you rest, safe, warm, remembered. The Ice Age dream ends, not with fear, but with peace. You've earned this stillness. Sweet dreams.